All right, so today we're doing a special webinar. We don't do many webinars here at Crazy Egg, but today we're doing 10 conversion rate truth bombs that will change the way you think. And I'm actually really excited for this. Larry Kim is our presenter, and you may know him from WordStream, and he's now with Mobile Monkey. I'm really excited to see what truth bombs he unveils. Let me get to this screen here. We have a running hashtag for this webinar, hashtag CrazyEggTruthBombs. So if you are on Twitter, you can follow along there. And my name's Sean Work, sorry, I should have introduced myself. I am the VP of Inbound Marketing here at Crazy Egg. And I want to discuss with you a couple new features we've released this year that are pretty exciting before we get going here. We released Editor, which allows you to make changes to your website without knowing how to code or using a developer. You can simply just click on Text, Edit, and make a change, which leads us to A/B testing, which is our other feature we released, which now you can A/B test those changes to see which ones perform best. And finally, we have Recordings, which allows you to record visitors using your website and users, and you can see what they're doing and maybe perhaps what stumbling blocks they're running into, what buttons they're not seeing or clicking on to help you kind of create a better user experience and perhaps test those out and see which versions perform better. So these are really exciting features we released this year at Crazy Egg. For those of you who really want Crazy Egg and these new features, you can email me, Sean@crazyegg.com. That's just SEAN at crazyegg.com. And I'll give you a special forever free plan of Crazy Egg. The rest of you will all get our free trial bundle, 14-day free trial of these products, so you'll get them regardless. But people who are very interested in this stuff, go ahead and email me. You can also reach out to me at Twitter @SeanVWork, and I'll just put this here.
And Sean, just one other question. What was the hashtag for this event today?
What I'm going to do right now is back up here, and it's hashtag CrazyEggTruthBombs, and I'm going to type it in here to the chat, so all of you can see that. Okay, so yeah, we had a little bit of a technical hiccup here starting here. We didn't have the screen showing the right screen, but now I'm going to switch the presenter over to Larry Kim, and he's going to blow your mind with 10 conversion rate optimization truth bombs.
All right, here we go. Awesome. Thanks, Sean. And thank you, everyone, for coming today. We're talking about 10 crazy CRO truth bombs that will forever change your life. And it's been several years since we've done a webinar together, so that's great to do this again, Sean. All right, so just kicking things off. This is once upon a time there was a magical landing page kingdom with a magical landing page princess who held a dark secret, and the secret was that her conversion rate was awful. It was like 1 or 2%. And sure enough, the king and queen of the kingdom, they set out an official decree, searching for a CRO who could help fix this unfortunate situation. And sure enough, the CRO guru showed up at their doorstep or at their drawbridge or whatever, and he said something like this. I'm sure you've heard this before. Message me in the chat if you've heard this before. If you change one of these things like the button color or the image or the text or the font spacing or whatever, sure enough, you'll see a 5% increase in conversions. And these little tests, the thing about these little tests is like, if you can squeak out 3, 4, 5% gains per test, and if you could do 1 test per week, that'll result in a lot of conversions over time. Maybe 1,064% compounded over a 12-month period, and boom, that's kind of the kind of like the broken windows theory of conversion rate optimization, if you will. The problem with this theory is it's all a lie. You see what happens in reality if you start doing enough of these tests. The problem here is that the the gains just don't persist. So this is what typically happens. This is a very common scenario where you're doing an A/B test, and by the way, I know you're going to say blah blah blah. It's not statistically significant or whatever. Trust me, this is a statistically significant test. You can do this with as little as 200 visitors, with as little as 5 conversions. So we have plenty more visitors and conversions in this conversion A/B test here, and basically what happened was, at the beginning, the first week, AA was a clear winner, but then the early lead disappeared. It kind of faded away over time, much later than after the winner was already declared, and so the gains, they just didn't persist. And when you got to like 2 weeks out, the loser became a winner. And if you're not convinced of yourself that this happens all the time, it's very simple. All you do is you take an A/B test that you've run, okay, where the margin is like 3% better or 1% better, whatever. It's just something where it's kind of marginally better, and just run the same test again. And what I've found is I can make A the winner, and I can make B the winner, like just by like not even changing A or B, like keeping them the same thing. There's just an element of randomness here, where things just kind of it's just called a variance basically, so that's kind of what we see in the vast majority of our A/B tests here. Furthermore, a lot of times these well-intentioned CRO efforts, they kind of just increase quantity of leads or at the expense of quality. Now, what I mean by this is, I've done work with these companies where they're like patting themselves on the back by increasing their lead conversion rate from 2 to 5 to 9 to 18%, only to see their percent marketing qualified leads show the complete opposite. So it's where you go from 7 to 4 to 2 to 1% in terms of the qualification rates, MQLs. And again, let me just give you a simple example of this. Like if you were to have a form that had like 100 fields, okay, then you would have a very, very low conversion rate, but the one person who made it through would be like super committed to buying whatever it is you're selling. And so like a lot of these things, you're just trading quantity for quality. A final issue here has to do with like the fact that despite huge popularity in CRO and conversion rate optimization over the last decade, the average conversion rate today is still 2%, and that hasn't changed since over a decade. So whatever you're selling, it's around 2%. Despite everyone's doing all this conversion rate optimization, why isn't the average conversion rates moving at all? And so I think the issue here with our donkey CRO man was that the conventional CRO, it wasn't working. It was mostly smoke and mirrors, Outraged, our king and queen of landing page land, hired a private investigator to kind of get to the bottom of this mystery, and I am that private investigator. Who was hired by the queen and king of landing page land. And basically, I wanted to get to the bottom of. I was going to share with you my findings of this investigation. However, before getting to all the details, just wanted to introduce myself briefly. I'm with the National Unicorn Marketing Association, debunking stupid CRO myths since 2008, and just wanted to share a few random facts about myself. I'm originally from Canada. Canada, a couple interesting facts. I was from Manitoba. That's kind of the polar bear capital of the world, and moved to Boston, about a decade ago because the weather is so much better. Those aren't really photos of Boston. That's I think that's Hoth or something. I live in Harvard Square. It's a very famous area in New England. It's where Microsoft was founded. It's where Facebook was founded. It's also where I founded my first business, WordStream, about 8 years ago, working all by myself out of a Panera Bread because they had free Wi-Fi and unlimited Diet Coke refills. The company today is huge. It's employing over 200 people, managing $1 billion of ad spend, for over 10,000 customers worldwide, and it's doing great. And if you ever need any PPC help, you should definitely check them out. But a couple months ago, I left the company that I founded to start a new bot kind of mobile company, and have been working on this for a few months now. So anyways, I don't have anything to show just yet, but maybe one day. Last little bit about myself. I have a 3-year-old kid, and I've been live blogging his life on the web at #PPCKid on Twitter. Here we are running the marathon together. He was trying to help me out, but actually he wasn't really that helpful. All right. Enough about me. Back to our great CRO conspiracy. 10 CRO truth bombs that will forever change your approach to marketing. Are you ready for this, Sean?
I'm ready.
Awesome. All right, so here's my number 10 truth bomb, which is to kill your calls to action. And I'm sure you're thinking, like, what? Calls to action? Those are like the most important possible thing you could ever have in your campaigns. And I'm like, you're probably thinking, like, there's even conferences named after calls to actions. Why on earth would you ever want to get rid of a call to action? Here's just some data that I shared a year ago, and basically what we found was that by doing a lot of email marketing, can you notice that these are our best performing email subject lines? Do you notice anything about these, Sean, at all?
Right off the bat, I do see numbers tend to be helpful, perhaps at the very beginning of the subject line.
They have no calls to action.
Oh.
So we just, we eliminated all the buy now and all the
hype.
Exactly, and we just went with some kind of emotional trigger, to spur curiosity or something, and basically the open rates went through the roof. Like sometimes these open rates could be as low as like 4 or 5%, and basically the theory here is that maybe the advice around calls to actions is kind of getting a little outdated. So you think back 15 years ago when the internet was like kind of a new thing, and people didn't know that if you clicked on a link that you could buy the thing, and so they were they was like, oh, you need to put these buttons, otherwise people won't know what to do. Well, the internet's been around for quite a while now, and I think they know that you can buy this stuff. I think it's kind of expected, actually, and so as is the case with most best practices, they tend to kind of have a way of kind of obsoleting themselves over time, and basically what I'm suggesting here is just give your customer the benefit of the doubt that they're not complete idiots, and instead use kind of the limited real estate that you have to talk about, I don't know, your guarantee or your competitive differentiators or some kind of emotional trigger, rather than wasting all this space on stupid, idiotic, calls to action, which should be obvious at this point. That's what we found works here. Number 9, truth bomb, has to do with raising your click-through rates will actually raise your conversion rates. I should say conversion rates. Sorry about that. And so I wanted to give you an example of this in practice. This ad here is a complete donkey. It's breast cancer screening with early detection survival rate is 100%. Book an appointment today. So this was, typical 2 or 3% click-through rates, and typical 2 or 3% conversion rates. What we did was we just changed the ad to dramatically raise the click-through rates, and so here's the same company, but it says breast cancer screening, only 15% of women live 5 years with late detection and get screened. So now we've kind of created some real, this is perfectly factual. This is actually like a true statistic, but we've kind of made it a little bit more emotional triggers, and trying to kind of think in terms of the mindset of the person doing the search. And this is a very compelling ad, and of course this gets 3, 4, 5 times higher click-through rates, and also gets 3, 4, 5 times more conversion rates. Not only did it do well in the conversion rates, it generated 125% more daily appointments being booked for this particular clinic, and 170% increase in the call volumes. And by the way, calls are worth a lot more than clicks. The contact rate, like all those leads that you're collecting, the the contact rate decreases, 21 times in the first 30 minutes. And so these calls, if you can just get them right at the right time, you'll have a lot more chance of selling to them whatever the heck you're trying to sell. And basically, the key takeaway here is that whatever the reason why there's a connection between click-through rates and conversion rates is because if you can get people worked up enough to click on your thing, that excitement or that fear or whatever that that emotion will carry through to a purchase or a lead. Like, it'll carry through to whatever it is you're hoping for them to do. That excitement, just they take it with them through the click. I'm just going to stop here for a second. Sean, any thoughts or questions about our first two truth bombs?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. The only thing that came to mind on my end was if you do collect a lot of email-based leads, the time you take to contact that lead is very, very important. There are a lot of studies that say that if you can actually call that lead within the first 5 minutes, your chance of business success is, it's almost an order of magnitude sometimes.
Yes, like 100 times decrease in contact rate in the first 5 to 30 minutes, which makes you wonder, like, why are we even collecting these things in the first place,
Yeah, anyone that has a sales team, that is one of the metrics you really want to focus on.
Awesome. Number 8, a CRO truth bomb, has to do with remarketing. It really is CRO. Now, a lot of marketers consider remarketing as advertising, but it really should be considered part of your CRO toolkit. The weird thing about remarketing is that the more times someone sees your ad, the higher the conversion rate. So think about that. The more times you see the ad, the higher the conversion rate is if you click on it. It's almost like, being nagged, over and over and over. And by the time you finally capitulate and you say, like, okay, I'll buy the damn thing, you have twice as likely, propensity to buy the thing over time. And so that seems like a really interesting way to double your conversion rates here. So I'm thinking remarketing on Facebook and the Google Display Network, and also being very aggressive in terms of, like, don't just remarket for like 10 minutes or something like this. Like, remarket for, if your sales cycle is a week on average, set the duration to 3 times that duration, so that you're in their face and they don't forget who you are, and don't limit the impressions. Just serve as much as aggressively as the ad platforms will allow you to do. And if you're worried about ad fatigue, if you don't want people seeing the same ad over and over and over, just have multiple ads, highlighting different features or benefits of your products and services. My number 7 truth bomb has to do with the impact of brand affinity and how that dramatically impacts conversion rates. So early on in my career as a marketer, I was led to believe that little changes that I was doing to my campaigns were having a dramatic effect on campaign results. So, for example, in AdWords, I thought, oh, maybe if I change the match types, it'll increase the conversion rates. And sure enough, people, they like to take credit for things. They try to convince themselves that their hard work has paid off, and so there's a natural bias in marketers to want to attribute positive results to their own actions. This is a bias. But basically, what I found was that most of the success or failure in conversion rates is already pre-baked. It has a lot to do with whether or not the brand you happen to be working for has strong or weak brand affinity. So if you're like the PPC manager for Nike, okay, I mean, those campaigns are going to do great no matter how crappy your campaigns are, because people have heard about this brand, you know what I mean? And if you're just like an unknown brand, you're kind of in trouble. So what I mean to say is we did a lot of experiments back when I was at WordStream last year, looking into kind of conversion rates of new visitors versus repeat visitors. And what we found, it shouldn't be that surprising, although it is interesting to see that it is backed with data, is that people who were familiar with you, that have visited your site recently, were 2 to 3 times more likely to convert than the people who had never visited you before. And this just tells me, like, when you think about conversion rate optimizations and you're trying to get these like 1 or 2% gains from these different tests, and then there's this notion of like brand affinity increasing conversion rates by 200 to 300%, as opposed to like 2 or 3%. It really tells me that this is the most powerful form of CRO, is just to create a brand that people have heard of and trust and love, because just doing that will double and triple the conversion rates. Any thoughts on those two, Sean?
Yes. So I know a lot of people are afraid of retargeting because they don't want to hurt their brand image. So what do you suggest people do? Just go for it and not worry about it, or wait till their brand gets a little stronger before they go heavily into retargeting?
Why would they be afraid of it? Is it because they're worried about the ads being placed on questionable sites? Is that what you're thinking?
More like it's annoying to people to see, or the creep factor of ads following you around the internet. They're afraid of that.
I think that the cat's out of the bag on that one, Sean. Remarketing is, it's like a 10-year-old technology. I think people understand that their browsing history is going to inform ad targeting, and given that that's the case, I think basically, I think this is, marketers think about this more than your average consumer. I don't know, for reasons that don't necessarily make much sense to me. I mean, maybe I'm trying to convince you here with this truth bomb.
No, I actually agree with you to go for it, but I just know some people that do say, like, God, it's so creepy to see this ad, follow me around the internet. And I collect that anecdotal data just to kind of go, okay, well, we should keep that in mind.
Well, wait till you see what other technologies we have that are substantially more creepy, because I feel like, I don't know, it was like, I don't know, Britney was like kind of shocking like 15 years ago, and now there's like all these other, people. It's the same idea with ad targeting. We've come a long way since this vanilla remarketing. And we can talk about that a little bit. So my number 6 PPC hack has to do with RLSA, which happens to be the most boring name in the world for the most powerful AdWords technology, in the platform. So RLSA stands for Remarketing Lists for Search Ads. RLSA, Remarketing Lists for Search Ads. And basically this is a search technology where, rather than targeting everyone who's searching for the keywords that you're interested in targeting, it's showing those keywords to people who have visited your sites recently. Okay, you get that?
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this is because you're cherry picking. Remember what we're talking about, new visitors versus repeat visitors. It's like comparing donkeys and unicorns. We talked about people who have visited you recently have 2 to 3 times higher click-through rates, and 2 to 3 times higher conversion rates. So here's the same research being done on new and repeat visitors based on click-through rates. And remember, higher click-through rates yields higher conversion rates. We talked about how, like, if you can get people excited about clicking on something, that excitement will carry through to a purchase. So the really neat thing about this is there's so much leverage in this strategy. Like, the higher click-through rates actually result in substantially lower cost per clicks. This is the case on all the ad platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Google, Google AdWords, YouTube, etc. The higher the click-through rates, the less you pay. And so when you're using remarketing lists for search ads as opposed to just vanilla search ads, you have the potential here of, tripling those click-through rates, which in turn cuts the cost per clicks in half, right? And triples the conversion rates, because you're going after the people who've heard of you before. The problem with the RLSA is just audience size. It's generally the case that there's more people in the world who haven't heard of you than who have heard of you. You see what I'm saying? So you're kind of cherry picking kind of the best possible customers as opposed to just creating new customers out of thin air, which is not usually as easy to do. It would be like playing a sporting game where you only had offense, where you had only defense and no offense or something like that. It's just you have to balance your marketing efforts between harvesting demand versus creating demand. And so the idea here, the hack, is to combine the power of RLSA, which is really great for harvesting demand that you've created, with the power of SEO and content marketing in order to kind of have your cake and eat it too. So here's kind of a graph of what we're talking about here, Sean. Hopefully you can follow this. Remarketing list for search ads is going after that dark circle. Those are the people who are familiar with your brand. Okay, that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. The problem is that there's so many more people who aren't familiar with your brand. But what you can do is you combine the power of social and search ads to make the smaller circle much bigger, like 100 to 1,000 times bigger, by doing like PR stunts or content marketing stunts or social media ads to just get your brand in front of people, so that that creates the familiarity, which is what makes RLSA work so great. A couple other ideas here. If you happen to know that your target audience is not just based on a keyword search, but is also based on an identity. Like, if you're selling audio speakers, you're actually more likely to sell these, hi-fi speakers to males, and they skew a little bit older, maybe like, 30, 40, 50 years old, and maybe not 65 years old, because by then you've lost your hearing or something. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But the point is, these search technologies, it used to be all about going after everyone who searched for a certain keyword, but everyone is not a target market. Only 1 or 2% of these people will convert, and so if you think about the definition of conversion rate, it's how many who converted divided by how many clicked on it. And so if you can raise the conversion rate by 2 ways, either by increasing the conversions or by lowering the clicks, by being more picky in terms of kind of screening out the people who aren't going to buy in the first place. So by layering in these things, and this is what I call super RLSA. If you've never heard of that, that's because I just invented this, a unicorn RLSA. It's basically you're combining, remarketing, because that means they've heard of you, with layering additional demographic qualifiers, as well as the keyword search. So you're getting people who are kind of ready to buy now, who are qualified buyers, who have brand affinity. And if you can do this, that's basically unicorn marketing. Any questions on that one, Sean?
No, that's exactly what you want to do. Anyone that's working for a known brand or big brand, then you obviously need to get on this.
Or if you don't have a big brand, it is upon you as the marketer to engage in certain types of marketing activities that will
increase the brand,
which will create the awareness and the demand for the products. So number 5, we're talking about creating off-topic content. Okay, so what I mean by this is, I'm sure a lot of the people on the phone today are kind of content marketers, and the conventional wisdom when it comes to content marketing is to stick to a niche and to own that niche. All right, like so for myself, I was like AdWords guy for like 5 years. Okay, I was like writing and breathing, like I would write 3 pieces on AdWords every week, for 5 years, and that's kind of the conventional success criteria is to stick to a niche, become the expert in that field. But what I'm telling you here is a really fantastic CRO strategy is actually to do the opposite, which is to go off topic, and to go after users to try to get their attention long before they ever start searching for the products and services in your niche. All right. So how does this work? So basically, what I'm talking about here is using the power of these new analytics tools, like a Google Analytics User Explorer. So this is it's kind of looking at the people who are visiting your site, and it's telling you what are their affinities, like what are their in-market segments, like what are they actually looking to buy, what do they love to consume, etc. Facebook has this really great tool called Audience Analytics, the Audience Manager here. And what this does is it tells you like what is the population of certain types of demographics and interests amongst your audience, and compares that to what does it look like for the population of Facebook, as a whole, right? It tells you, what their education level is, what their relationship status is, etc. Even stupid Twitter analytics has remarkable insights into what are the interests of the people who are following you and engaging with you on Twitter. Okay. And so the reason why that's so valuable is because this tells me that if I want to get in front of my target customer to build that brand affinity before they start searching for, certain marketing solutions or whatever, I need to be blogging about, entrepreneurship and business news and technology news, because look at this insight here. It says 70% of my audience is into entrepreneurship, and that makes a lot of sense. And so that's one of the reasons why a few years ago I actually stopped blogging, exclusively about these kind of really dorky algorithmic, PPC hacks, and kind of took it up a level, if you will, and started talking about like just general business issues. This is to create a bias amongst my target audience long before they ever, decide to buy, mobile marketing solutions or AdWords solutions. You see what I'm saying here, Sean? And it also has the benefit of being a substantially larger niche, so I can cast a much wider net. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go crazy and just abandon your niche, and just write about like hot garbage. But what I am suggesting is from time to time it helps to through some clever analytics, if you know that there's certain topics that are very, very interesting to your audience, to do some marketing in those interest areas, because those are likely to become your customers in the future. Any thoughts about that one?
Yeah, I totally agree. Definitely spend time in all your analytics dashboards and kind of just get a cup of coffee and look at the interesting insights that you see, because you might come up with these great content ideas.
Basically, what I'm suggesting is you create content in the area of greatest common overlap between what your users are interested in consuming and what you're capable of speaking to with authority. All right, so like my customers might also be interested in celebrity gossip, but I just don't have the authority to say anything interesting there, with any amount of credibility. Okay, but the biggest area of of interest amongst my target audience that I could speak to with some credibility, being a business founder here, was this notion of entrepreneurship and technology and productivity, and so that's kind of what I've done here. So just thinking about how marketing really works, it's fairly simple. You're creating a inspirational, memorable content about your brand and getting that in front of this target market. People then see the ad or the content. It doesn't have to be an ad. It could be a blog post. They then basically, they'll see it. They don't necessarily take action or buy your stuff right away, but in the back of their head, they'll form a bias and they'll start thinking happy thoughts towards your company or your identity. Later, when the need arises, people will do one of a few things. They'll either do a branded search for your stuff because they remember you, in which case you've won because they're looking to buy your stuff, or they'll do an unbranded search for the products and services that you're selling. But when they do that search, they'll be kind of biased towards choosing you and buying from you because they've heard of you before. So that's kind of how this works. We're down to my number 4, truth bomb, has to do with creating stronger biases with video ads. We've talked a little bit how marketing works, and it's all about getting that content in front of people and making sure they remember it, like the Geico lizard or whatever, the gecko. Very memorable character, and so the strongest way to create these biases is actually using video ads. It's not only more memorable, but because of these ad platforms like Facebook, they reward high engagement content, so content with high click-through rates and high engagement rates with very, very, very low costs per views. So this is like a 2-cent cost per view, and let me. So it's kind of a double perfect storm. You get more brand recall at lower cost. You see what I'm saying? And this is like a stupid video that I did a little while ago. You don't hear the sound for this, do you?
I hear some squeaking.
Sorry?
Yeah, a little. We hear it faintly.
So, I mean, this is ridiculous. It was like, did you see that video? It was like a donkey getting zapped by a lightning bolt and turned into a unicorn and then jumping into a rocket ship and blasting off into space. Holy smokes, like that was crazy. It's so hard to unsee, and this kind of stuff is how marketing works. The next time you think of a unicorn, you'll probably think of me or one of my companies here. Chances are people from all over the world send me unicorn crap, because like I got like unicorn masks and unicorn ties and all sorts of items every week because of the brand affinity. I got all the free stuff. It's a nice little perk. Just kidding. I do appreciate any unicorn things if you want to send me anything here. I mean, number 3, we're almost at the end of this. We're talking about eliminating your landing pages. So, why the heck would you ever, eliminate your landing pages? And the reason is because they're kind of obsolete. All these new mobile technologies kind of obviate the need to get people to click through to your website in the first place. And this is an example of a lead capture ad in Facebook where they're submitting their contact information to you without ever having left the platform, right? And the pricing for this ad format is cost per lead based rather than clicks. The problem with buying clicks is that if only 2 or 3% of them are converting, it means you're spending, you're buying 50 to 33 clicks for every lead. You see what I'm saying? It's just much more economical here if you can, get the buy by the leads. We're basically eliminating an entire stage of the funnel here. Where like why on earth would you send people to your website if you're losing 98% of them? Like if 98% of them don't give you their information. Instead, like with these call ads and these lead form ads, you can kind of eliminate that leaky bucket altogether. Any thoughts on either of those, Sean?
Do this. Everyone should do this.
All right, so we're down to my number 2 CRO truth bomb today, and that is to change your flow. So what do I mean by changing your flow? So a few years, this is like a decade ago, I was working for a software product company that was doing desktop software, okay? And the desktop software, you had to go to a website and register for a software key to unlock the desktop software. I'm sure you've done that before, where we just register for the software. We did one change with this setup. We made it so you could download the executable directly from their website, but the last stage of the installer then kind of held you hostage. It said, great, the final step of installing this thing is just to enter your registration key, and you can register, like rather than having them go to a website, we just had them register for the thing like in the software application right here, like there was a pop-up. And basically that was just by changing the flow for kind of asking for the key at the beginning versus asking it like 5 minutes into the you have to download the thing and then run the installer. You've already invested 2 or 3 minutes into this process, and you're kind of asking at the last stage here. You've kind of been, anticipation has been building and all this stuff, and finally you pop the question here. This triples to quintuples your conversion rates. You see what I'm saying? So just thinking about where you want to put those they're called turnstiles, and putting them later on in the experience can have a big difference. Okay, so my number one CRO truth bomb for today, it's to change your offer for insanely awesome CRO. And this is actually the biggest and most important lesson for today. The thing here is, like, back when I was at WordStream, we did all this research on donkeys and unicorns, donkeys being kind of the average marketers, and they would have these crappy offers that would convert at around 2%. The top 25% of advertisers had stuff that was converting at 5%, and the top 10% of advertisers were doing 11.45 and above. All right, so there was this pretty diverse kind of spectrum of, like, really crappy to really great distribution. It's kind of like it's almost like this notion of it's called the power law. Like the richest have all the money, or your top campaigns do substantially better than all the other campaigns together. And just recognizing that there's such a difference between no matter what industry you're looking at. So even if you segment by, like, finance or real estate or whatever, the top 10% of offers do roughly 5 times better than the average donkey. Okay, and so the key here is not necessarily to try to put lipstick on a donkey, but rather it's to change your offer, right? So how do you convert your donkey offer into a unicorn? Let me give you an example. This is an e-commerce example of a customer of WordStream that had thousands of products in their catalog. Okay, some of these products had very crappy click-through rates, like 0 or 1 or 2% click-through rates, and they were converting awfully, like 0.5% or 1%. Others had substantially higher click-through rates and were converting at substantially higher conversion rates. You see what I'm saying? And so what I'm saying is that, in that product catalog, there were really great products and there were really donkey products. Like there was crap stuff like picnic pants, which is the worst product in the world. You're basically eating off your own crotch, and why the heck would anyone want to buy something like this? It's crazy, and that's an example of an offer that has very low click-through rates and very low conversion rates. What you want to do is stop selling the damn picnic pants and instead sell something that's more interesting, like drones. Drones, by the way, are the coolest thing ever. And if you are looking for a gift idea for a good friend or a husband, I highly recommend the DJI Phantom 4. And basically, the worst thing that we can do is put lipstick on a donkey. And so this is kind of what a lot of CROs actually believe, that if you could just make buy 1 picnic pants, get 1 free, or triple the size of the buy buttons, or kind of get better photography, that somehow that this is going to yield better results. But it's just lipstick on the donkey. You're still selling these stupid picnic pants, which are just the most awful thing ever. Even if you do succeed in creating the perfect picnic pants, buy now page with all the right colors and everything, you're still only you've summited the donkey hill. Okay, you congratulations, you're king of the hill, but that hill is donkey hill. What you should have done is, like, with a theoretical, it's never going to get any better than 1.5% conversion rate. You see what I'm saying? What you should have done is just abandon that quest altogether and just tried to find something better to sell, so that and something worth summiting, something worth where you do become the victor of that space, that it's actually worth something. Unicorn Hill, and I just wanted to give you an example of how do you turn picnic pants into a drone from my own life. Once upon a time, 7 or 8 years ago, when I started WordStream, the offer that we were trying to get people to do was a free trial of the software, where you would fill out your, name and all this stuff. And at the end of this registration process, you would get to try my software, okay? And why did we do this that way? The reason was because we were a software company, and that's what was expected of software companies, that you're selling software, you should kind of just do what everyone else does. Let's just give a free trial. And then we did that stupid thing where you add videos and change the benefits and change the headlines, and it did nothing. Our conversion rates were the donkey conversion rates for 2, 3, 4 years. Okay. Then one day, it occurred to me, it's wait a minute, why am I keep sending people to this donkey offer, even though it has a 2%, or some donkey conversion rate? Basically, if you have a low conversion rate, that's the universe is telling you that the thing that you're trying to sell isn't that interesting. Okay, Sean? It's
true.
I just took a cue from the universe and said, why don't I try something different? And so we just, I took a team of 3 engineers and we built this WordStream AdWords performance grader in 90 days. And all it was is it just, rather than trying out the software, it did an evaluation of your AdWords account. And by the way, this is a really great offer. You should try it out. It's www.wordstream.com/AdWords. It'll give you a free report card of how you're doing. It'll say oh, that agency that you've hired, they haven't logged in 6 months. or it'll tell you what your click-through rate is and if that's any good or not. You're in the bottom 30th percentile or whatever. So we just change it so they don't have to do any work. It just gives you a free report card. That 10x the conversion rates. 10x, not 10%. 1,000% change. And when you do these types of fundamental changes, like selling drones versus selling picnic pants, the gains, this is the one case where the gains actually stick. You know what I mean? Because you're offering something substantially different. One other crazy example, when I started the company 8 years ago, we started out in free keyword tools. It sounded like a great idea, but it had a low monthly price and it had a pretty bad customer lifetime value. And what I could have done is I could have just kept on pushing this rock up a hill and becoming the kind of the greatest keyword in the history of man. But maybe that has an 8-month customer lifetime value. You see what I'm saying? What do I do when I win that market? And instead, what we did was we basically pivoted to selling something a little bit more valuable with substantially better business characteristics. You see what I'm saying? So the leverage here is less about just dressing up, these donkeys, but rather converting the donkeys into unicorns. And basically, we've been talking a lot about conversion rate optimization and what does it all mean. Well, here's kind of the map from donkey land to unicorn land. We talked about kind of creating and promoting content to your target market on the cheap in order to, create these biases in people's heads and grow your brand. We talked a little about promoting video ads because they're even more memorable, and tagging people with cookies and remarketing the heck out of them so that they remember who you are. We're talking about how remarketing can then turn those biased users into customers. But in converting them, consider eliminating the landing pages and changing out your stupid offers with something radically different and radically better. And that is kind of my take on Unicorn CRO. 3 types of categories. If you think about all the 10 hacks we talked about today, there was ones that were kind of on-page elements, and you see how it's kind of like this baby unicorn. Those are important, but I feel like they're kind of like the weakest of the group. There were a bunch of hacks related to brand awareness where we kind of get people to have kind of irrational, happy feelings about your brand and your products, and that has tremendous, like 2 to 3 times, so 200 to 300% increases. And then the ultimate growth hack was this notion of just re-engineering whatever it is you're selling to be so much better than something that's converting at 2%. And this has the impact of not only raising the conversion rates, but also the sales. But I'm not saying that any of these are not important, but just focus on all 3 areas. I think a lot of companies tend to focus on number 1 exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So just any thoughts on this, Sean?
Yeah, something comes to mind. I'm sure there might be people in the audience that they believe their product is a donkey. They work for a company that makes donkeys. They work at a donkey factory. What do? Quit, or do they go and confront upper management and make the changes and be the leader of change in their organization?
Well, I would do that, obviously. It's really not... Intuitively, it's kind of obvious. Like, if you have been trying 101 different things to sell your crap product and it's still converting at 1 or 2%, it's a little delusional to believe that sending out this offer to even 1,000 more people, is going to somehow change that reality. You know what I mean? Like, if the first 1,000 people didn't like it, what makes you think that the next 1,000 will like it? You know what I mean? But yet, that is how these companies operate. They don't think about the leverage of doing something different. It's always about pushing stuff harder.
Beating a dead donkey.
Yes, beating the dead donkey to death. This is like the donkey zombie. It's already dead, but let's keep beating it. All right. I would quit. That's what I would do. I would find. You're going to work. Would you rather work for a company that has a lot of great brand affinity with the products and has great, wouldn't you rather work for like Uber than a taxi company? Well, maybe not Uber, because that place is kind of melting down with all these scandals. But you know what I'm talking. Maybe Lyft or something.
Well, it could be a good company, but they just need to see the light. So, at least the first attempt is to try to help out and suggest and give advice, see where that goes.
So just wrapping up our fairy tale CRO story today, the landing page princess decided she didn't need Prince CRO Charming. She ended up becoming a growth hacker and brand builder, and instead this resulted in a ridiculously great conversion rate optimization. The CRO donkey was banned from the kingdom. Just be careful of these CRO donkeys. They're just awful. They're just flipping coins, basically, and thinking that they're going to add up to something, and they never do. I used to think that the CRO stuff was a big deal, but it turned out to be mostly variance. The things that matter are the ones where you're seeing 200 to 300% changes, or when you have brand affinity, it's not a little bit better. It's like 300% better. You see what I'm saying? You want to be chasing after the big things, not the little things, and being a unicorn in a sea of donkeys. So, Sean, thanks so much for having me. Do we have any questions from our audience today?
We do. And how much time do you have for questions? Just so maybe we can do a few.
About 10 minutes.
Sure,
10
minutes? Okay. So one of the first questions, by the way, there's a questions box in your control panel, audience, so go ahead and throw in a question if you have one for Larry. The first one is, for a company with 10,000 MRR, how much would you be spending for AdWords? So that's kind of a...
Well, it's not about the MMR per se. It's about... on a unit economic basis. So for that one new customer, how much of that revenue is being spent on marketing? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Crazy Egg is, what's your price there, Sean, for for a monthly
So
cost?
basic is $29 a month.
$29 a month. Yeah. So I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but let's just say that the average customer lifetime for this was 2 years. I don't know if it is or not, but we're just going to make this up. Okay, so that's 24 months. Okay, so that means that if you take $29 a month times 24 months, the quick math tells me that's around $700. Okay. Customer lifetime value of $700. Okay, so a rule of thumb says not more than 30% of that profit, that $700, not more than 30% of that should go to marketing. Okay, because marketing isn't just one, it's like sales and marketing. So a third of $700 is like it's around $250. So Sean, I hope you're not spending more than $260 to hire these to acquire these customers, because otherwise you would be spending way too much on marketing and not paying for your developers, or not paying for your administrative costs or your offices, etc. There's other costs associated with the business. Next question.
Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead and throw in a question or two in your questions box if you have any for Larry. This is a great opportunity to get some expert advice. Let's see here. Well, it looks like we have kind of a bunch of know-it-alls here. Anything else you want to end with, Larry, or let anyone know?
Thanks for coming out, guys, and I happen to think really I think that Crazy Egg is a great company, and if you're in the market for this kind of heat tracking analytics software, I recommend you check them out.
Thank you, Larry, and yeah, please follow Larry. We're going to put his Twitter here in the chat box. He's a wonderful guy to follow on Twitter and know what he's up to. And tell us a little bit more about Mobile Monkey before we go.
It's just early stage stuff. In the jumping on the mobile and AI and machine learning and chatbot bandwagon. I'm kind of I'm following my own advice here of trying to pick an exciting thing. Yeah, it's still early stage though, and if you message me, I can add you to the lists to get updates on stuff if and when that stuff becomes available.
What's the best way for them to connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best because Twitter, I just have like nearly 1 million people on that, and it's just such an awful like the signal to noise ratio is insane.
Okay.
I'll get like 4,500 notifications in like an hour.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that's impossible.
So there's a good chance that I'll miss whatever it is you were trying to send me. So.
All right. Okay, audience. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you, Larry. That was great advice. I mean, I learned a lot just from watching this, and we did record this, and I'll be putting the recording up probably about next week after we have it edited. Until then, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Again, my email is sean@crazyegg.com. It's pretty easy to remember, and so feel free to message me. All right, guys. Have a great rest of the week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right, bye.